You and I have done a lot of seminars together. We've had some good times. We were out, what's the name of that big lodge? Arrowhead Lodge out in Oklahoma. Do you remember that? We had the gal from England was there. What's her name? You did a program for us out there, and for the first time...
You know the one that had the locket bar?
Yep.
Collies?
You betcha.
I had to admit that they were good.
You admitted a lot of stuff that day. We had Steve in a program out here at Arrowhead Lodge in Oklahoma, and this goes back Florence Cummings times and Bess and some of the other gals that were down in the Southwest, and Steve was I think the center point of the program. I was an MC or something like that, and he sat down and just absolutely captivated an audience for hours and hours and hours. And Steve, I still remember something about a bitch that you had in the back of your coupe, and you stopped on the way home to get a beer or something at a tavern or something, and you had a male that you didn't really knew what the score was. Take it from there. Can you pick up on that?
Yes. Had to be careful about these things.
Yeah. As long as we're on tape, we got to be careful.
It was a hot day, and I was going south. I forget what show it was down in through there. And I think I had Pamela and Image, as I remember. They were both pretty young. And they were in the back seat, and I'd stopped in the shade of a tree, and I'd let them loose to run out in a pasture. There weren't many cars, and that time I took a side road. And then I was just kind of dozing around, and I'll be darned if those two weren't tied in the back seat there. I could go into a few more details, but I better not, since this is on tape.
It was a four-wheel house of ill repute that he was driving at the time. 8 cylinder.
Well, I guess I had thought carefully that I probably would breed those two together.
You planned to do it anyway, right?
Anyway, but I wasn't expecting it that day, and you might ask why. Because there was a show the next day. Or maybe that night. And I remember I took those two in the ring at different times, and Image, he didn't show too great. He's kind of tired. I see Lena is turning
Mexicali Rose over there.
And Pamela, I think Image, I don't remember what he got, maybe reserve or something like that. I think there were some pretty decent dogs there and so on, but he was noticed. The bitch showed great. She was just sparkling around there. Well, you might ask, well, whatever come of that breeding later on?
Planned breeding.
That planned breeding. This greatest thought through deal, successful one. Well, if I remember correctly, I think there were 2 or maybe 3. I think Kinmont Shane was one of them.
Not half bad.
And Portrait was the other. And I guess there were some others that started along, but the Pamela wasn't too interested in nursing pups. She was up everything. The lady that had the litter farmed out bitch, she said we're having trouble. She doesn't stay with them and nurse them and trotting all around, and some of them ain't doing so well. So I trotted down. I drove down, clear down to Nebraska City or whatever town's near there. It's one of those towns near there. And about once a day, and I saw that they got hooked on. Maybe it was twice a day, and got things going, calmed her down. And this one pup, Shane, he really blossomed. From the beginning, he showed coat, muzzle, substance. Pamela has showed type. She later won the CC of A, best opposite in some pretty big competition with some stuff.
What did that Shane turn out to be?
What?
The puppy that you saw in there that really looked so nice in that litter, what did that turn out to be?
Shane.
Shane.
Kinmont Shane. Well, why didn't I keep him? Why didn't I keep him? Well, when you've got a backyard that's no bigger than this room, more or less.
Last of the big breeders.
How many male dogs and how many things can you keep around? You had to get rid there.
Tell the truth. Lena told you to get that one out of there. Laid the law down, Steve.
Had to.
I think it's.
I hated to see him go, and he got the butlers, and they wrote, "Wow, what a nice puppy there! He bounced out of the crate and was ready to play with me right away when he come in there, and he did great." I would have kind of liked it if they'd called him Parader's Shane. I think she always kind of realized that through the year, but he became Kinmont Shane, and he was a very worthy dog. And if I remember correctly, I believe he was a sire that had quite a few good individuals coming through him. I believe Country Lane Melissa was out of that dog, and I consider her objectively. I won't say as one of the best bitches. I was afraid you might ask that question sometime. I wouldn't make any
write that down.
there. But I would consider her one of the best bitches
Of all time.
that I saw anyway.
Yeah, I think so.
There. And there were some other pretty good ones out of him too. And of course, at my age and this many years, you like to claim reflected glory. What made the smooth improve so much?
Tell me about it.
What was the name of that good tricolored dog that won the CCLA one year? Black Hawk.
Kassan.
You go back in his pedigree a little ways, you got Kinmont Shane. You got Kinmont Shane.
Interesting things, but what did you tell
Go back a little Kinmont Shane, you've got Image. Half-brother, half-sister to Pamela. Back Silver Hope Parader. Back to Shining Arrow. Back to Big Parade. Back to Future of Arkin. He deserved to be good.
You betcha. You betcha.
He deserved to be good. He deserved to be saved. And I'm not sure if he would have made it if I hadn't have gone down there and got done this. She never was a good mother. If I was advising people as to what kind of bitch to use as the all-time brood bitch for founding a kennel, I'd say try to get one that had a mother that was a pretty good mother, matronly.
Pour Steve some water. I'm afraid he's going to run out here in a second. Are you getting a little raspy or something? Or
Well, as long as
we need a little water for.
As long as it's just water, I may not say too much that I shouldn't. But I think a certain amount of that's to be considered. I've known certain lines that kind of petered out because the bitches didn't have complete seasons, were difficult to get settled, began to run into breeding troubles, and I think it's more often than we think. And you might ask, well, what the hell's the reason of it? Well, I think some of it's maybe genetic, some of it maybe is one thing and another.
Medically induced today?
I don't know.
We get a lot of wild.
I don't know. One mustn't make any complete statements, but there have been some lines that are kind of peter. The bitch has to be able to have pups, and the dog has to be able to sire pups.
You got it.
Without too much help.
Let's take a break from the parader line for 1 second. There's a heck of a lot of people out on the other side of that camera who say, tell me about Steve Fields, the man. What, you know, they don't know whether you were a preacher or a used car salesman or what, Steve. They know you're a horse trader, but I mean, what about profession? What did you do most of your life out there in Omaha? Tell them about it.
Well, I've already told you that I grew up on a farm. I liked animals. I took an interest in other animals besides dogs. And I probably shouldn't say this, but at one time I was quite interested in German Shepherd dogs too.
Well, you had horses too, didn't you, one time? Did you do some things with horses?
Oh, yes, a little. And
you're telling me that your whole life was just animal husbandry or animals? Did you have a profession? Did you? I mean, you got to support sending these bitches back to Sterling somehow.
I told my 8th grade teacher that when I was registering for high school that I wasn't going to take Latin because I didn't intend to take the college preparatory course. I didn't intend to go to college, and I was going to be a farmer and a poultry raiser.
There you go.
And she said, "Oh, no, no, and I didn't.
You didn't take it?
But when I got to be, I found out that high school freshman and sophomore weren't too bad and wasn't doing too bad in it. And I began to think back in those days you had to take Latin. And I took Latin, foreign language as junior and senior, and some other college preparatory courses.
Thank you.
And we didn't teach biology in high school those days. Firsthand from my older brothers and sisters that were going to college and taking courses in it, and they were teaching me about biology and botany, even though I wasn't taking the courses in high school. They didn't offer it in those days. And
you told me you had to take Latin just to learn how to read pedigrees. Isn't that...
Well, they you have to have glasses.
Steve, listen. As part of this thing, we asked people to write in and send us questions. You think you're up to fielding a couple of questions?
I haven't finished with this other.
Onward.
There.
Do your thing.
You might not believe it, but I took most of my biology and genetics in postgraduate college work there. And I took a lot of it at Ames, their courses and this and that and here and there. And I read a lot of books in genetics, and I became so I could teach. I taught biology for, I was trying to think, it must have been 30 years or so, biology.
Okay. How about genetics? Do you teach too?
Well, yeah. I tried to teach it. I knew something about it from what Dad was doing. He even had seed corn. It wasn't hybrid seed corn in those days, but it was selection. It was based on selection. Ears that ripened early, turned over on the stalk well, and he saved them before the frost. So on. I learned something from him. I learned something from my brothers. And there was a book. It was by Lusk, Breeding and Improvement of Farm Animals. I'm not sure if it's even published today. I've had that book. It's so marked up with markings and so on of different animals, line breeding, inbreeding, and outcrossing. And of course, the funny thing about it is that it doesn't apply quite the same to all different animals. And there are exceptions to practically anything that you can name. There are red Angus that pop up here and there. There are crosses between Angus cattle who are polled and black with purebred shorthorn cattle that have horns and are red. And practically all of them are black and without horns. But now and then you find some kind of scurfs in there. So don't tell me that you have complete dominance in very many things.
particularly genetics.
in genetics. And in the college, in the biology book, there were the simple cases, the deals, you know, where you have the tall peas and the short peas, and you cross those in the first generation. The tall ones are about like the other tall ones. In other words, the tall ones completely dominated the tall ones. Well, that's something, isn't it? But that works with peas. The next generation you cross them, and you'll get something different.
You bet.
You'll get one short one, genetically short, genotype. You'll get one tall one that's genotype for tall, and you'll get two tall ones that are they look as tall as the other one, but they carry a gene of each one. You get some funny stuff there, don't you?
You bet.
And then in high school, you did pretty well if you could get your brightest kids. I wasn't such a great teacher, I guess, but you did pretty well if you could get your bright kids to get that through their head so that when you had a test, they could mark them out with plus for dominate and tall for and a short.
Yeah.
Then you get 4 o'clock flowers. You get red ones that are pure for red. You get white ones. And you cross those, and at least in some strains of 4 o'clock flowers, the first generation, you get pink. 4 pink ones out of all 4. In other words, incomplete dominance. Some of these other geneticists, they can't quite get it.
Trouble with blue
Can't quite get it through their head, but there might be some funny things operating. Everything in here.
Absolutely.
And if they all say it's something, why, I suppose they're right. They've taken a lot of courses, they've degrees, and they've looked at a lot of things. In the next generation, you breed together those with a pink, pink ones with a red and a white gene in there. Breed them together, and you'll get 1 red one, 1 white one, and 2 pink ones. Well, of course,
take notes.
If you're beginning to raise collies, one of the nice things that you can start with is the tricolor and the sable. And if you've got a tricolor male and a tricolor bitch, you're going to have a heck of a time ever convincing anybody that you're going to get any sable pups out of that mating if it's the mate there. And on the other hand, if you have a male that's pure for sable and you breed it to a tricolor bitch, you're going to have a heck of a time convincing anybody
you got it. That are all sable.
That they can all be sables. And then you get some funny things. Where do you get these mahogany sables? And how can you tell a pure for sable by appearance from the other? And then what do you do if you have golden sables that don't have masks and are as dark as you'd like them? Sometimes you wait another few years and they'll get dark. So just wait about that. Don't get in a hurry. See what happened. I named Imperator's Golden Image. He was, I'd say, a medium sable. He wasn't really a golden. My gosh, when he got to be 7, 8, 9 years old, he was a dark mahogany.
Yeah.
And with a mask, and that is one of the good things about him there. And they carried that is. Now, I'm not going to go in too much into breeding of whites or blues. I have
Do you have feelings about this?
Now, don't go into that.
You know, I got a question about that.
I suppose I have marked on paper, I've looked at charts, I've given it thought, I've read the damned and damn not about the different ones, and I've listened to different people, and I guess I'll just have to pass that one.
God, are you running for office?
No, I'm not. No, I'm not, but I hope I'll have a few friends left in this world. I'm not going to go in it too much.
That's one way to do it.
Maybe it's been a good thing to incorporate something in there that hasn't been just an inbreeding in there. Maybe there's been a hybrid vigor that's sometimes come in through bitches like Blue Jeans or some that you can. I don't know.
Yes.
I don't know. I think there were maybe 3 occasions when I allowed people to breed blue bitches to dogs that I owned, and they're interesting results. I don't know if they're worth mentioning or not. One of them was a golden sable. Was a bitch that was kind of a blue, not very dark blue, and so on. And those pups weren't nice color at all. Another one was to a champion blue bitch from Des Moines. She was a hell of a good bitch, and she was bred to Silver Hoe Parader. And there was a male in that litter that was a mahogany to no end, and I looked at him, and I looked a little closer. There was a flake in one.
A little fleck.
Aye, and I didn't. I wasn't saving many of those in those days. I guess that's nothing particular deal, but I didn't think, I wasn't prepared.
I see.
And so on. There was another time that somebody bred a really good blue bitch to. I don't remember what the other pups were colored like. It wasn't too bad a deal, because he was a mahogany sable there. The other breeding was to a mahogany sable male to a blue bitch that was a good bitch somewhere down south. I don't remember just what her name was. She was a good bitch and a champion bitch too. And there was a
I think maybe the owner.
there was, no kidding, there was a male out of that finished the championship there, and wasn't too bad there. But back in those days, there weren't so many good tricolor dogs running around.
That they could use.
I saw at least one tricolor in there
In your judging?
today that I thought would ask some questions. People could ask some questions about it. But some of these blue bitches, they aren't going to have to be bred to sable males and so on. Is a big deal. And what they should do with and showing them, I'll leave that up to somebody else.
Thank you, Steve Fields.
Have I answered your question?
No. But I didn't think I was going to get an answer when we started, Steve, and I think you diplomatically went around it as gracefully as could be expected. I think we ought to say for the camera and the people that are out there that Steve judged earlier today, did the Nebraska Collie Club specialty show here. And Steve, do I dare ask your age at this point, that you're out there in that prancing around the ring doing your thing? You're getting, I know you're over 50.
There.
Lockjaw set in, or
Put these on.
Oh, God.
And
I won't press you for your age. I see your name is up to judge the Collie Club of America in a couple of years. You're running right up at the top of the list there.
I remember one time I didn't put up a certain pretty good bitch that somebody
Leave my bitches out of it.
thought it should have been put up, and somebody sent me a pair of glasses. All good-naturedly and kidded. I might have missed their individual. And I used to trot back and forth along the line and pat each one and say hello and so on. You noticed I made them kind of come to me pretty much, and I'd look at their...
What about the people that tip you off that they've bred to your dog, Steve, and you haven't heard any results, and then sort of suddenly you get a letter and maybe a couple of pictures just before you're getting ready to judge somewhere? Would you care to comment about that at all?
Well, so what? I damn well am not going to be bribed. I'll tell you that. And on the other hand, I'll tell you, if there's a nice picture somebody sends me, you can be damn sure I'm going to take another look at that dog and see if he's as good as the picture and so on. It's not. I remember, I probably shouldn't tell this.
No, you should. That's what I was leading up to.
I guess I've told. I remember one time, it was many years ago.
Listen.
And somebody that had a dog that was winning pretty well sent me a picture. He was still a class dog. And the picture looked pretty good. I guess I'd seen the same picture in the magazines anyway, which incidentally, it's a damn good thing to put a picture of a dog that you're going to be showing in the Collie Club of America, get the pictures published in the
Don't tell them
dog news and so on. They know it better than I do, boy. And it's all right.
Okay.
It's all right.
Get back this dude that sent you the picture.
I was judging a class. I don't remember what it was, what class it was, and I looked at a dog that fellow had, and
who's in the ring under you now?
On the ring under me. And I wasn't spending much time with it and kind of frowned, and the guy
Who sent
said,
you the letter?
No, he didn't send me a letter. He shook his head. This ain't the one.
You're going to send pictures, you got to be careful.
This ain't the one. He came in later with something that looked like the picture and was a damn good dog. I don't remember whether I gave a winner's dog or whether I didn't, but anyway, it got a damn sight better placement than that one had. But I don't see anything greatly wrong. If you've got something you're proud of,
Advertise it.
advertise it.
You got it.
You send the picture into all the other magazines and so on. And if you get a win under some judge, send them a picture. I take pride in showing pictures that I have at home of various dogs that I've put up.
Doesn't it kind of tick you off, Steve, when you give somebody a really nice win in the ring and they don't bother to send you a picture? Doesn't it kind of bother you?
No, it doesn't. I can look at the pictures. If it's a long time off, I can look at the pictures in here and I can turn back the pages through the years that I've lived and judged and think, by gosh, I judged that dog one time and I remember that dog and so on. And it's a pleasure.
Indeed.
And if I'll give you a little advice, if you have a dog, don't ever put a picture in the magazine that isn't a good picture.
Exactly.
It'll do you damage. Wait till it's a good one. Get some people that kind of know a collie that's your friend and shuffle them out some pictures and say, which one do you like? Which one do you like?
In other words, what you're saying is the great picture might...
Go something by them. Excuse me.
Go.
Go something by them, but ultimately I go ultimately what I think is the best.
I think that's great advice. How many times do you look through some of this stuff and you see kind of a crummy picture and you say to yourself, my God, why would they put a picture like that in, right?
I'm not going to tell you the particular dog, but I'm going to give you... There was a dog one time in California that took a hell of a good picture. And he did some winning. He had his championship. There was a lady named Ludwig that took pictures. She was a good one.
Still does?
She still does. And when she took pictures of it, good. I don't blame you people that were having pictures of dogs today. You were a little disgusted at me, I think, because I was kind of hurrying them along. I was kind of tired and waiting to sit down a little and so on. But have them take a couple pictures if they need to. Try to get your dog in a nice position so he's looking at the right angle. If you can't get it, some of the best pictures I ever had of my dogs were taken by my son Mike.
Is that right?
Yes, they were.
Snap shooting from right
And
side.
some of the poorest pictures I ever had taken were some of them that were taken maybe when some dog of mine that was winning groups didn't hit a good picture.
You got a boxer photographer or something.
Well, the dog not having his ears up, looking a little this or that. There, and of course, we have the Bellhaven pictures that used to appear in our Collie book. They were good pictures and they were good dogs. And there were Tosky taken there and worked a little bit, and they were good. They were so damn perfect that you couldn't hardly get a dog that good there. And there are other good photographers. There never has been a time when there have been people who draw as well as today.
Indeed.
That are having pictures. The original picture of our standard was the head by Van Dyke's son, Howard, there. And I say it's the one on here.
Yes.
And of course, Mrs. Still is really
Fine artist.
fine. And I can name several others that have sent me pictures that they've drawn. I don't know if I've ever acknowledged them or told them how much I appreciate them, but gosh, some of these pictures are beautiful. The ones that are doing them for our CC of A work and little artwork and postcards and so on. Pictures like that on stationery and good Collie engravings like I saw Gordon have on his jacket, a pretty nice Collie head. They do something good. And we have today, talking about pictures,
Really good.
do you want me to go into that a little bit?
Sure, do it.
If you can still get these and others,
Are you going to do an ad now?
no.
It's time
But the CC of A is selling some of this stuff.
You talk.
If you can get,
Go ahead.
you've got books.
You betcha.
You've got books. And you've got not only the Collie Club of America one, but you've got others. You've got others that are good.
I think.
Great.
I think the first.
Send for them.
The first
Get
one
'em.
I think is sold out.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if they plan to.
But maybe you can talk somebody into letting them out of their hands, but you hate to do it.
Well, Honig charges an awful lot. I mean, he's got the corner on these things. I think he bought about 200 to start.
Well, that's all right. That way they.
At least we
and
got some then, right?
You've got Roos's book.
You
You've
bet.
got Pat Starkweather's book. And you've got the Collie Club of America book that was worked over by the president of the CCFA with a lot of help from Mrs. Well, about 3 or 4 other people.
Schroeder.
Mrs. Butler before she died, a great deal, and Schroeder and some others. You take a look sometime, the people that have worked in collecting these pictures and so on, and we owe them a debt of gratitude. And of course you can go to some of these places and dog shows, and what do they have on their shelf? They've got an English book. It's a pretty good book. It's all right. And I regret that I've made too many derogatory comments sometime, but there are some darn good English collies today and in that picture. But if you want to get that, fine. But it seems to me we ought to put a little pressure on some of these people that have stands around at our shows to feature some of our books.
Indeed. I think you make a good point.
And of course you've got trouble if you favor one or the other. They're all good.
Indeed they And I think you're getting a really good tip here, friends, coming straight from Mr. Collie. Steve Fields is telling you that in his early training and his early upbringing on collies, he read a lot. That was the only
Everything I could lay my hands on.
You had at that point.
I even went to the downtown Omaha library and I found out that they had a volume that had on dogs, and they had, it was quite a big book. I don't know if they still have it there or not, but they had pictures there of several of the famous English Miramu Fantail and several others that were great, Lund, this and that, that were great dogs. And I'd look at those. I'd go up more than one time to look at the books there to read them. You can absorb a lot by looking at pictures. Sometime if some of you come to my place, I'd like to look through a few of these pictures in here. Do you want me to go into that a little bit more?
Well, let me tell you what we're going to do.
Maybe it'll hinge on some
When we get out
other.
to your place, I think what we're going to do, Steve, is we're going to photograph right out of the book some of the Prater dogs of the past and let them see them. But tell some of the folks here.
I'm not
about your
talking.
place.
I'm not talking about just Prater dogs, because the Prater dogs are not the only ones that are pictured in here.
I'll be damned.
It's good dogs.
Oh yeah, there.
Yeah. Well,
You made notes here.
I made 3 notes. 4.
Pick up.
Yeah.
No.
All right. I'll take this.
Page 88.
Page 88. You'll find Future of Arkin. I don't need to show you the picture Future of Arkin in here. You know what it looks like. It shows the beautiful expression of the dog. He isn't standing so great, and I don't know if he ever won any working groups, and I don't think I ever saw him. I just saw pictures of him, but I've talked with a lot of people that did. And I went to some of those seminars in the East, and I
He was something.
listened to what Future of Arkin, page 88. And this is a classic picture. He's not standing so great there. I don't know how many working groups he won, but it shows type, doesn't it?
Yes, indeed.
I've seen a few other pictures of him that weren't flattering.
Have you seen the painting that Howard's son did of him?
Of Future?
Yeah.
No.
That Gus had for a long time.
Here is another of my favorite pictures in here. You might ask, well, what do I like to see in a male? All right, this is a picture in here on page 100. Lond Lecter of Belhaven. That shows a muzzle, doesn't it? A male. But muzzle, it shows something, doesn't it?
Yes, indeed.
Nice. I don't know what those ears are be. They're just too dang pretty to be true. I didn't see them. It was... And don't let anybody tell you that there weren't some good dogs at Belhaven, even at the last. I went there even at the last, and I saw 3 of them that were just
Super.
Lance and another sable male and a sable male. Lance was a tricolor and a bitch, and they were still good. There was another picture that's quite similar to that.
99, is that?
99's Big Parade. You've seen pictures of him. No picture could show the expression of Big Parade and so on. This is one of the better ones. Dwight Armstrong, who owned the litter brother of Big Parade, who incidentally I bred to one time, had a picture of Big Parade, and I've given it to some books and stuff to use. I think it's in another one. It's a better picture than this. But this picture shows him fair. He was able to beat everything in his day. Black Lucason would occasionally beat. They were the 2 best show dogs. They were the 2 best type dogs. You can learn something by looking at the good pictures of good dogs. And there's a picture of a dog that you may not heard of on 165.
65 or 69?
It's on 65. This picture is very much like the picture of Lond Lecter of Belhaven, isn't it? Mm-hmm. But it isn't. It's it's labeled as a picture of Honeybrook General Delivery. A dog that Van Dyke owned once, he sold to Willie Sterrett in Texas, and the picture is really, I think, one that was kind of a composite deal, but it's awfully good, isn't it?
Oh, indeed. That's the classic.
It's awfully good. I think Van Dyke once wrote to me, said, I saw him go out in the pen next to Big Parade, and I was amazed, he said. Of course, he was a younger dog. The ears were probably weighted.
Mm-hmm. Gorgeous picture.
That's something that you kind of learn scuttlebutt as the years go on. And sometimes if enough years have elapsed, it's probably true and it's not harmless. So what there in the picture, but he wasn't really such a great sire any time, and he didn't win so terribly much ever. And I think there were other things. It's an example of where a picture that's had a little touching up is better there. And incidentally, that postage stamp that somebody got through with the United States government, I don't know who it was, but there are some behind-the-scenes things that are done good to that. I wish I'd bought sheets of it instead of a handful of them there. I've often wondered what dog that was patterned after, and I noticed a picture or a thing I have on something at home. I think it was Lon Lecter of Belhaven.
I think you might be right. I think you might.
It looks enough like it, and that thing that I have on a stand, inkstand, in my home, looks enough like that, so it might be.
Would you like to know? I'll find it. I'll let you know. I'll check it out.
I
know the artist. So.
There are other dogs that look that way. Well, there's an example of 3 pictures that are good. There. Maybe you look at the picture of General Delivery's sister here, you can see a very common-looking individual. Yes, oh, she made her championship there, which leads to another point. As a breeding individual, I like to see something that comes from a family that's been good, and like to something that had a brother or a sister, or a sire, or something that they've sired that have been good, and out of more than one bitch.
I agree.
It isn't so many years back that somebody that you maybe know had some collies around this place here, and I looked at something in the catalog there, as well as I could see with my glasses, said, my God, what's this? There several from the same litter and some mother that something, that resemblance, that my God, that may be a history-making situation.
Indeed. Some interesting things. Steve, we're kind of wearing you down here. We're letting you do all the chatting.
No, I've done better than I expected here.
I think you're doing just great. Can we ask you a question or two that have come in from some of the people that have sent things in?
Yeah.
We did get some cards, you know, that come in, and I was kidding about.
Geez, you got too many cards there.
Well, I beefed that up.
Oh, there's some of them blank. Good, okay, yeah.
It's a TV.
Not incriminating.
TV thing. Steve, don't give away all the secrets. The first question that came in answer to, if you had one question to ask Steve Fields, what would it be? The very first card I got, and it was about 3 days after the first ad came out, came from Dr. Richard Greathouse, Louisville, Kentucky. He said, Dear Steve, over the years, why is it you never answer your mail? Signed, Doc. You care to comment on it? You want to pass? They get easier.
Let me give a little history of that. In school, I wasn't too bad at reciting, and I could spell fair, not as good as my wife can, and I got by all right. I didn't like to write compositions. Damn how I hated to write compositions.
I think you're answering the question.
And I went on my master's degree. Well, you have orals and you have writtens. And one of the comments was, well, you do pretty well when you're answering orally and talking on different things. And, it's better than what you have there. That was an understatement of the year, although I got by all right from that. And then, of course, when I began teaching school, things got better again, because I could take what I'd written out and I could give it to one of the girls in the stenographic or class. It was an A English student, and I'd say, you get this typed out and do the commas and the paragraphs and so on. And it turned out pretty good. Turned out pretty good. One of these days I'll maybe again get one of my daughters around and she can work out some. But I just, and besides some of these other things, it's kind of easy to write on something that, and some certain things when you're really sure of your answers. I used to be very sure of what I'd write. I was looking over an old dog news article. It was written way back in the 40s sometime or other, and I think maybe when I was president of the club or something, and it was, what is important?
By Stephen J.
By me. I didn't notice the other, I just noticed one, and I was reading something, geez, that sounds pretty good. And I turned back at the thing, and I noticed the beginning of the thing, it said, by me. And
had a ring to it.
Yeah, and sometime if you want me to go over a little resume of that, what I have in my mind, I can tell you.
Dig that out some more. We'll talk about it. We'll get out. That'd be
what is important.
I think that'd be very interesting. Dig it
And
out.
of course I'd answer it after judging something and say, well, damn near everything's important.
I'm going to move on to the next question. Dennis and Carol Elliott from Hampshire, Illinois. These folks wrote in, and they were so enthusiastic that about the interviewing of you, Steve, that they sent me a list of 10 questions, all of which were really quite good. And what I'm going to do is kind of split them up among some of the other questions that we've got. But the one that they started out with, I thought was an extremely good question. So let me throw this at you. They said, quote, in the 40s and 50s, were number of dog breeders housed, in other words, the number of the dogs the breeders housed, an asset that we small breeders of the 80s are missing to keep the quality that was so evident back then? What would you say?
I think cars driving all over, city laws restricting the number that you can have. My gosh, how can anybody have very good selection of a litter if they have to keep too many pups in the backyard, if they don't know what to do with something? Used to be that you could find some farmer somewhere and give them a bitch and get them out of there. When I was coming over here, I was just showing Bill there the different people that I'd had dogs out with there. Now they've got cars so fast and so many laws about dogs and so on, it's awfully hard to house them. And take it from me, just housing a lot of dogs doesn't solve anything particular well. Getting somebody that can take nice personal care of a litter and lives off the road and has some kids that'll play with them and feed them and so on, that solves a hell of a lot of problems.
You get the true value of the
there.
dog, don't you?
So there were some big kennels back in those days that Bellhaven was about ready to phase out. She was getting old, and Mike Kennedy was too. They had pens and nice pens, and they had space in them. Neighbor problems. You aren't supposed to have a dog debarked there. Which is an interesting point. Silver Hope Parader knew that I didn't like to have barking in the backyard. We lived in town. Neighbors never complained much about barking there because we were friends of them, and Lena made cookies for their kids and was nice to their kids. And our kids played with their kids and didn't fight with them too much. And somebody down half a block would say, "We heard
Your dog bark.
we saw 3, 4. I always made it a point not to have too many in the backyard. But Silver Hope Parader learned that was, shut up. I put him in at night. It cuts down the barking some, most of the time. But he learned that, and if a bitch that was in the pen around there would start barking, he'd go after him and shut him up.
He was kind of the boss man of the kennel.
Don't think he wasn't.
I don't doubt it one iota. Let me go on to the next question. I think you'll like this. Ready? It says, "Dear Steve, you have done a lot of judging. I still get confused. When my winner's dog, Ruff, goes best of variety, and I have a smooth champion bitch best of variety, who do I bring back in the ring for best opposite sex to best of breed?" Signed, John Honig.
Has he got all of those?
I'm not really sure.
Well, let
I
me
stuck that
see.
one in there on John.
Who are you going to bring in for best of breed? Well, you're judging best of variety, or best of breed at the end, of course.
Absolutely.
You've got, so
He should know better anyway.
who should
let me get
who should he bring in, or John Trainer bring in?
Careful now. This is on tape. Dear Steve, my one question is...
Well, I mean, they both do fine job. I've got no complaint.
Dear Steve, my one question is, quote, "Please tell me what you feel are the 10 most important attributes of the Collie in order of your preference." Now, this comes from a lady who says she's been breeding for 30 years. She has line-bred Parader, cherishes her first pedigree from you, and to say thank you to you. And she says, "P.S. What was Champion Silver Hose Parader's call name?"
Lad.
She says, "Hell, I lost my bet." Lad.
That's the easy one to answer.
That's easy. And her name is Pat Wiles, and she's from out in Ferndale, Washington. Let's not worry about 10 of the...
I think in that article I wrote, I have about 5 or 6, and I say that they're all important, and most of them are. Some are more important than others. And what's important depends on degree of fault,
Yes.
as well as what the fault is. How can you say whether movement or head is more important? Well, that's an easy one to answer. They're both damn important, and it depends on how bad the movement is. It depends on how rough, how bad the head is. You have degree of fault entering in, but there's one thing I would say that's damn important, and that is your head qualities of the dog, and particularly the expression of your dog.
Would you say that's one expression, Steve?
I would say expression ranks very high if you consider expression as to be not just the head, but the all-over grandeur and appearance of the dog as it comes in. Expression can be told not just by the head and the eyes there, not just by whether the ears break just right, that's important, not just whether the skull is chiseled exactly right, not just whether the lip is down a little. It depends on the demeanor of the dog, and of course if the tail is between the legs, that ain't good. That's not so good either.
Doesn't make it all.
That doesn't make them happy.
Did
But
you folks listen to that?
I'd say expression. Why do I say so? The standard says so. The standard says the word expression is important. The standard uses the word expression. I don't know if it's 5 or 6 or what times there, but many times. You underline each time. It was intended that the Collie should be a beautiful breed with grandeur, not only of body but expression. And of course, on the other hand, you can say they're a dog that has to be able to move along. Their original purpose was for herding there, and my hat's off to the people that have good sound dogs. A dog that isn't sound, and if it has anything really awful in there, like dysplasia or something, you can be into trouble in the breed. But your expression mirrors a lot more. The word is greater than the sum total of each of those things.
You got it.
Your Gestalt psychology, again.
Absolutely correct.
Your expression.
Beautiful. Ladies and gentlemen, it's getting late in the hour tonight, so we're going to call our interview to a close for this portion. And I think what better note to end it on than to hear Mr. Fields, Mr. Collie, sit here and say to you, let's take expression. And did you listen to that patter that he just rattled off, just as if it was right there on the tip of his tongue, talking about the eyes, the ear, the way the head is shaped, the way the neck comes up. It was just marvelous. You're listening to one of the greatest that we have with us today. And we've got some of it down for you now on tape. And so we're going to call the session to a close tonight. I hope you've appreciated what we've done tonight. We're going to leave from here, hopefully get out to Steve's place the next day or so, and there's some races involved here somewhere that we have to get to, Steve. I'm not sure which. But we're going to go out to your place.
Watch out on betting.
We're going to go out there and we're going to sit down and we're going to chuck a little piece of grass up in our teeth, and we're going to go on with the interview and see if we can get everything we possibly can with this wonderful man on tape. How about it? Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for the night. Enjoy it. Steve, thank you.
Thank you.